Hi, my name's Phil. I like to talk about politics, and Michael Gove continues to wind me up this week. So the headlines from yesterday's Express were cheering the £93 million bill that the government are paying to tell the whole country about how they broke their 2016 Brexit promises, as if that's somehow a good thing. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So this is what Vote Leave was saying in 2016. Vote Leave was run by Dominic Cummings, Boris Johnson, Michael Gove, Dominic Raab and Priti Patel. In other words, the very people now in charge of government policy. Now, at the time of the referendum campaign, didn't have this channel of course, but to the people I would talk about it, I tried to point out that some people that were making various Brexit promises were utterly worthless. Their word was worthless because the people campaigning to leave the EU were not in charge of policy. They had no power to implement anything. But this hasn't been true for over a year now, because for the past 13 months, the very people who campaigned on these Brexit promises had been the very same people who do decide government policy on all areas, including Brexit. And yet, that same group of people are now spending £93 million to let everyone know that the costs of doing business are going up. And the costs of going on holiday are going up. You know, we're going to need private health insurance. The cost of running your mobile phone on holiday is going to go up. Leaving the single market, something they promised would never do. That all means we need to prepare, apparently. Not quite sure why we need to prepare when we're getting all of the same benefits of being EU members, but an overall better deal. Not quite following the logic there. Now, Michael Gove, that chap who's wound me up 2 days in a row, also announced between 10 and 12 new border control sites in Parliament, mere weeks after the government was saying that there would be no extra checks and there was no need for new sites, because why would we need new sites? There's not going to be extra checks. Of course, this all means that now there isn't time to have them ready due to the delay in doing what we said they were going to have to do years ago, and they kept calling Project Fear. Still, the government insists that they will be ready for January the 1st, so I'll leave it at that for now. Gove also said that HMRC are writing to the 12,000 British businesses that currently trade with the EU without any bureaucracy to tell them about all the lovely bureaucracy that they will be engaging in from January. At least that's what he said. Now, given that Liz Truss's letter that was leaked last week seemed to suggest that even the government doesn't know the procedures in full yet, I'm not sure how much detail that letter from HMRC is going to contain. And it also doesn't seem to include the businesses who trade between Great Britain and Northern Ireland, who are also going to have extra costs and bureaucracy. Not quite sure when they're going to be written to about the changes. Now, in responding, Gove's opposite number in Labour, Rachel Reeves, noted that the government's own estimates of the extra bureaucracy is going to cost British businesses £12.8 billion. So, just to be clear here, our net contribution to the EU as a member in 2018, which is the year before the EU had to start withdrawing from the UK, our net contribution to the EU was £8.9 billion. So, for all those boneheads who still insist that EU membership is an actual cost to us, British businesses are going to have to pay £13 billion just to fill out the forms. That's not the sum total of their costs. That's just for dealing with the forms needed to trade with the EU. That's a £4 billion extra cost to Britain for leaving. Just that one extra cost completely exceeds our total net annual contributions and therefore blows apart that moronic argument. And there are lots of other costs. This is why the last government impact report that was commissioned on dealing with leaving the EU on a hard Brexit said that actually the cost would be £2 billion a week. Oh, and that £13 billion a year cost to business, like I say, isn't the full cost of trading. Of course not. That is the cost just for being able to trade with the EU. Now, there's British businesses that trade with other countries as well that are going to have extra costs as well, because they will also no longer be able to trade on the same terms as now. Then there's the cost to the Treasury, of course, doesn't include that. So all the custom sites that need to be built, these 10 to 12 extra sites, that lorry park that's been built, all the bureaucrats that they're hiring and training, at least I assume they're training them, but as they still don't know what the procedures are in full, I imagine training is a little bit limited at the moment. If it's anything like the COVID tracing training, it'll be getting them to read a 2-page PDF. The Institute of Directors polled their members and found that only a quarter are ready for the end of the transition period, with manufacturing businesses particularly unprepared. The government said that they wouldn't extend the transition period because giving a definitive date on that gives businesses certainty, and businesses like certainty. Businesses do like certainty. The problem is that there is zero clarity. They have no idea what the trading arrangements are for next January. Certainty would have been extending the transition period because then they would have known what the trading conditions were. I mean, let's face facts. We know from Liz Truss's leaked letter that government ministers themselves do not know what the trading arrangements are for next January. We know that. This letter was sent last week. Now, this is an appalling dereliction of duty, of course, but I'm not going to waste my energy, as some are, hoping that these charlatans will one day face justice for what they're doing. I don't believe that they will. I will simply hope that people recognise what they've done sooner rather than later. But even that is a hope, not an expectation. 69% of the directors polled also said that securing a deal with the EU was important for their business and the economy. And that includes some directors who would like to see some divergence from EU rules. Even some pro-Brexit company directors absolutely do not want to leave without a deal. They called for a phased implementation of the new regime. Now, I have to say, I do wonder if this might in actual fact be possible. Because the situation admitted to by the government is as follows. 1. We are going to have to carry out checks on imports and exports from the 1st of January 2021. 2. We do not have the capacity to carry out those checks on imports and exports from January the 1st, 2021. Michael Gove said we should be able to be ready by July. Industry insiders say that this is bollocks, but let's go with the government on this one. 3. We are in for a world of pain if we do not reconcile points 1 and 2. This is according to Cabinet Minister Liz Truss in that letter that I'm bound to have to refer to multiple times this week, potentially in detail in another video. So that is the situation as clearly accepted by the government. They have said so. That's not reading between the lines, that's what they've said. So if you work on the principle that we need another 6 months from the end of the transition period to prepare, the government could actually agree something that looks bloody similar to the transition period lasting from January the 1st, 2021 to June the 30th, 2021. It wouldn't include the requirement to continue negotiations, of course, they would end. It could even leave out certain areas of cooperation just so that people don't call it the transition period by another name if they need that for political purposes. We'd still have to follow EU rules, of course, because we'd still be in the single market and the customs union. Now, if Boris Johnson is of a mind to do that, hang on, did I say Boris Johnson? Sorry, I meant Dominic Cummings. Then they could call it exactly what business leaders want them to do, a phased transition. We've left the EU now, we've left the transition period, we're going to have a phased transition to full divergence on a strictly time-limited basis to complete border preparations. Not politically straightforward, admittedly. After all, people will point to the fact that it is still an arrangement that means we are following all EU rules. Never mind that this is what we're going to be doing in the future anyway, when we finally have to go back to the EU to arrange a proper trade agreement. But that's not what the Brexiteers want right now. But if the government wants to avoid the very visible chaos of a no-deal Brexit hitting in January, they are going to have to come up with something. They cannot just proceed as things seem to be going for now. There has to be something that they are planning on. By their own admission, they cannot have the border facilities in place by then and up and fully running. This might be one way to deal with it, if they can manage it politically, and if they genuinely believe that they can, with another 6 months, get the border arrangements in place. That would mean, of course, getting pro-Brexit backbenchers in the Conservative Party, pro-Brexit media and pro-Brexit donors on side with it all. In the meantime, the government are being careful with their use of language around Brexit. So I noted a few months ago that they were using the word opportunities in relation to the changing shape of our post-Brexit nation. The implication being that any business that goes under did not do so because the government pulled the rug from under their feet with a no-deal Brexit. It will be because those businesses failed to take the opportunities that Brexit presented. The same goes for workers and probably entire towns. Not that the government have been able to identify any example opportunities, naturally, because that would just highlight that the only opportunities presenting themselves are for the shady and the wealthy. But there it is. Those are my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. This is a topic that's going to keep running this week, I am sure. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.